Hello again, everyone. This is Shelby, and I wanted to ask Juan and Richard some questions today. So, Juan and Richard, each of you work with different K-12 networks and environments, and you interact with those networks in different ways. Can you first remind the students today what it is that you do?
Sure. I'm CTO for a privately held company called All Connected, and we act as a contractor or consultant for a variety of school districts, mostly in the Ventura County area.
And I work as an IT analyst for the school district here. I help with troubleshooting and support of our staff and students when it comes to our network infrastructure. Specifically, I help deal with the wireless. Specifically, I help deal with the wireless issues we have here on our in our school district.
Great. Can either of you think of any ways that your work has been impacted by the growth of wireless networking and maybe some limitations that have come from that?
Yeah. Well, when I first started here at the school district about 4 years ago, we had a small amount of wireless devices across each site, maybe a handful of laptops, a couple of Chromebook carts, but no bring your own device policy implemented just yet. However, though, now that you look at it, we have a one-to-one initiative for our Chromebooks, which means we went from a couple hundred to now having about 30,000 Chromebooks across our entire school district. That doesn't even include the bring your own device policy devices that students and staff are also bringing on our sites. Between that, it was great to see the involvement of everybody. That meant that we had to go to the planning phase, discussing what our goals were between ourselves and our other departments and how it was supposed to be accomplished, reaching out to different vendors to see what kind of options and devices they could provide to accomplish those goals. But ultimately, it came down to involving as many individuals as groups as possible. Those are the real stakeholders that are involved here. So it means student groups, it meant teacher groups, support staff from all different areas of the district. It was very, very important that as we grow and we grew, that we planned for this so that everybody had a say and everybody was happy in the implementation and how it was going to work out. We want to make sure ultimately that everybody is supported in providing that education to our students is first and foremost by getting rid of any kind of obstacles that might be in the way through growth.
Yeah, and we see it a little bit differently, Shelby. We see it on the response to RFPs, obviously. We're often also brought in to design a district's network for wireless. And again, as Juan mentioned, we have to speak to various stakeholders to understand the intention of the network. So what are they trying to accomplish? And we've seen a tremendous growth. We have some districts even that have started with a one-to-one type policy, and they've purchased the Chromebooks or laptops or tablets for the students, but then they're also allowing students to bring devices on campus. So we can end up in a policy where you have even 2 or 3 devices per student. And with limitations of access points, usually they can only handle about 50 devices per access point. As you can imagine, it means that we put a lot of effort into designing the network that it's predictable and it operates the way that the district expects it to.
Wow, okay. So then how has your work been impacted by changes in speed in those networks over the year? Did that affect how having multiple devices or anything like that?
For us, it did, yeah. What we saw was a uptick especially as we crossed from 2.4 gigahertz frequencies to 5 gigahertz. That meant a lot more access points were needed. But the need for speed within schools came down to a change in content. So a lot more video content is being displayed on wireless devices. And there was a point in time where any kind of streaming video or high bandwidth content actually had to go on the wired network. And as districts realized that the wireless technology was getting to the point where they could do this wirelessly, where it was even possible, then we started to see a lot more requests for things like 802.11ac recently, and newer wireless network technologies that allow the multimedia experience.
Yeah, there's not much more I can add to that. The reality of it is that as more of our instruction goes to the cloud or to the World Wide Web, we need consistent speeds across all channels in every classroom. So this was one of the important aspects when it came to planning everything out, is how can we provide the consistent speeds across the entire school district so that no individual, no group will be left behind without the same access. So that no matter if you're in elementary school, middle school, or high school, you still be able to access your online curriculum or be able to connect for your to your tests without any issues or slowdowns whatsoever.
Okay, great. So speed definitely needs to increase then. So how has your work been impacted by any of the changing expectation in terms of connectivity in your wireless networks in your K-12 environments?
For us, we've gotten more requests in the last couple of years to fill in the outdoor areas. Some of that is coming down to people using, laptops or tablets in outdoor areas. One school in our area, the school my son attends, they'll actually move the classroom outdoors outdoors if it's a nice day out. We live in a pretty nice part of the country, so as far as like actually having a decent day, it happens pretty frequently in the summer, especially as we get closer. But they'll take a class outside, and so they've asked to put more access points outdoors and cover those areas that previously were pretty dark from a wireless perspective. At least that's the connectivity expectation I've been seeing.
Just to jump on that as well, Richard, I kind of wish I would have met you about 2 years ago. We are currently in the process of implementing our outdoor wireless as well, and we're also including wireless in areas we might not have considered, because we have more and more devices that are going wireless. Now, instead of your old school projectors and screens, now we have display boards and LCD touchscreen computers that teachers use, and these are also connected now wirelessly. So as we grow, being able to connect all of these devices becomes more crucial, and also expanding that to our support staff as well, who travel from site to site and wish to turn all of their devices into a wireless group as well. Now we're seeing irrigation go wireless. We're seeing the AC units and everything else as well move to a wireless realm. So it's very, very important that we consider what devices in the future might want to get connected to, so you can plan accordingly.
Right. Yeah, that makes me think of some of the commercials I've seen lately for smart stoves and smart fridges, if only. Okay. How has your work been impacted by like concerns of health and safety, or what does that even mean in terms of wireless networks?
In terms of health and safety, we have our town meetings, and we have our community bring up their concerns and their suggestions for what's going on in the classroom. We haven't had anything in terms of scientific yet, or any kind of data brought to us that shows that there is a major concern in terms of health and standards. There are a couple of parents that do voice their opinions, but just the data itself isn't conclusive in terms of what they are affected by when it comes to the wireless transmissions of the standards that we use across the school district. Now, in my specific position, I don't speak a lot with those parents directly, but I only hear the indirect conversations that they're having with them. And from what I understand, the concerns are very, very minimal, as the level of power output from these devices is minuscule compared to what you have in your pockets when it comes to like a cell phone and such.
Yeah, and I've had the conversation. I think Juan said it perfectly. There's not scientific evidence that there's actually a danger from Wi-Fi radiation. It's very, very low levels, and often what I explain as well is that there's background radiation all around us. The electromagnetic spectrum is full of noise. There's lots of radiation in lots of other different areas, and so there are some people who are concerned about its impact on the way cells divide, whether it could cause an increase in some types of cancer, things like that. The research that's been done that I've looked into has really been more around like the Bluetooth protocol, where somebody's holding a device near their face for an extended period of time. There's potentially some real risk there, but the risk from actual wireless radiation is not something that has been scientifically proven. There are other concerns, though. There's concerns about just screen time for students and other issues that cause a student to perhaps become overly attached to electronic devices and detached from the outside world, and that obviously could impact them in a school environment.
Yeah, absolutely. That also makes me think of my time at the Boys and Girls Club, and I would say safety on the internet was one of the biggest things we were cautious of, making sure they didn't get on sites they weren't supposed to and things like that. So it sounds like health and safety can mean a lot of things in terms of wireless networking. So then, we've talked about all the topics of this assignment. What is a great way for the students of this course to continue digging in deeper and knowing more about these topics?
I think a lot of this can go out if they reach out to their supervisor or someone in the actual field that's not in their own department. It would really help them understand what growth, speed, connectivity, health, and safety means on a whole nother level. We oftentimes work in our own departments, in our own small groups, and we only see or hear what is given to us. However, when we approach others that are in a completely different field, for instance, I work in IT. So if I go out to our grounds department or or even our teachers and such, and I have a conversation with them, I might discover something different that I wasn't planning for or expecting that might help in terms of providing a great wireless standard for everybody.
Yeah, and speaking from the contractor side, if your district is engaged with a contractor and they're producing a design document, for example, there are things that should be on that design document. And as this course is particularly helpful for understanding the elements that are in a wireless network, but ask questions. You know, it's important to understand what things are being installed and why they're being installed where they are, and whether or not the end result result is going to be adequate. And hopefully this course and other courses like it will help the students to understand how things actually work and improve the overall experience.
All right. Thank you, Richard and Juan. Until next time.
Very good. Thank you, Shelby.
Thank you, Shelby.